Council meeting of Monday, December the 30th, 8 a.m. To order. I'd like to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded for public access. And with that, do I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
So moved.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor
Seconded.
Gallant, seconded by Councillor Dykstra. Questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor? Aye.
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 Contrary minded? Motion carried. With that, I'll remind everyone, if you do have a conflict of interest, if you could let the clerk know about it. Moving on to item number 4, reports from administration. Item number 1, award of tender, Saul's 2025-01 purchase of RTV side-by-side.
So as noted in the council package, we've proposed going through the Canoe procurement program again this year. This is a 2025 capital budget item that we're hoping to have earlier in the new year than some other capital projects. So similar to the track list that was purchased through Canoe, our vendor that we use for our other comparable machinery is a Canoe authorized vendor. And we were able to get a discounted price through that group purchasing agreement, in this case with Kubota. So with that, there's some more information. Essentially, it includes a side-by-side with a number of different attachments specific for the trail network and grooming the trail network. And there's some additional information and a recommendation on the floor for council.
So I'll move that council award the purchase of a new Kubota RTV-X2C to Nova International at the price of $49,790.26, excluding HST, and the purchase of the spreader V-blade and snowblower for an additional $20,047.68, excluding HST, under the Sourcewell Canoe contract 122220-KBA as authorized by the Minister of Service Brunswick in the letter dated December 8th, 2023.
So moved by Councillor Dykstra, seconded by Councillor Oblinas. Questions to the motion?
Is there a particular reason why there's only one item looked at for this particular job?
What do you mean, like one product?
One side-by-side, one brand, why trackless can't do the same job? Like,
so yeah, the trackless can't. The trackless is designed specifically for sidewalk. So all of our tractors are through Kubota. So they generally will go there first, and they demoed this product because it's available through Canoe. So we started with that, just like we did with the trackless, because we can get that initial group purchasing group discount off the bat. And their preferred vendor in this case is this particular one, where we have that comparable machinery already.
Can you
there's
remind
a certain point I do think that it might make even sense to go with a half-ton truck and do the same job. Your recreation truck, like, that can also do the same job, in my opinion. But again, if this is what everyone thinks is the better product for the job, then that's fine too.
It's definitely the standard and the preferred approach. And in particular with the recreation truck, that's also a 2025 capital budget, because that's also on its last legs, the current one. But this is definitely the preferred approach, and is what is in the approved capital plan too. So.
Okay.
Councillor,
can you remind me? Yeah. Can you remind me what was budgeted for this for 2025?
75,000.
Okay.
Yeah, I should have said that. Sorry.
Favor? Aye. Favor?
Aye.
Raise your hand.
Aye.
Are you muted, Rob?
Oh, can everybody else hear me?
It's quiet.
I can't hear. Stephanie, did you say something?
No, I raised my hand. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Sorry.
Okay, great.
I think I've got Stephanie's vote, John's vote, Deputy Mayor Galant's vote, Nathan's vote, Sarah's vote. I think that's everybody. Yeah, and my vote. So I think we have consensus. Contrary minded. Don't think we have any nays. Motion carried. Moving on to item number 2, award of tender Sols 2025-02 municipal building renovations.
So this is a long-awaited project that's been deferred all throughout this year, based on the fact that we initially wanted to wait for the fire hall to be tendered and then had to engage another engineering discipline during one of the reviews of the building. But we are recommending an award for the municipal building renovation contract. We've outlined the scope of work as an overview in the memo. But as a quick Coles Notes reminder, it focuses on the bottom level, so it makes the building, the entrance accessible. It renovates council chambers. This option has the addition of HVAC, so heat mini splits all throughout the bottom floor, including the replacement of the existing unit in council chambers. Has the reconfiguration of the kind of entrance area to have an accessible but also secluded public area. The addition of an enclosed office on the interior admin side, the reconfiguration of the interiors. And then when you get towards public works, it removes basically that wall that we see right now to have an entrance into an enclosed public works office and then a revised public workspace. I've done my best to show in a 3D block where each of those things are. It is a little bit confusing. A big component of the price is HVAC elements. So the obviously AC units as well, but there is electrical and mechanical work that comes with upgrading a building of this age, including some things that are to code, like HRVs, for example. So one has to be put on the bottom floor. That reconfigured some of the initial design because it needs basically a small closet space. We also need to put one upstairs, even if we're not doing work there right now, as part of this initial contract. But it does need to go upstairs. And then there's obviously logistical elements that are related, mostly on the electrical side, but all M&E related, mechanical and electrical related. That's part of this project. So that's my overview of the project itself from a procurement perspective. When we spoke with council about this last, we determined that we would go on a by invite basis to local proponents. This is the same thing that we did with the washroom, and we're in a comparable scenario as in the washroom, in that we sent it out to 4. We had an optional site visit. We had 3 attend, and only had 1 submit a bid. The bid is over the provincial procurement thresholds. However, the costing or the estimates, the budgeted estimates going in there, were under that threshold, in which case Strategic Procurement with Service New Brunswick has advised that there is essentially an obligation to consider an award because it goes based on that budgeted estimate as opposed to the actual tender value, especially given construction markets these days. So that is the overview of the project and the tendering. We have a recommendation on the floor, which is to the one bidder that we received, and then can be available for any questions.
I'll move that the Salisbury Town
I'll
Council
move
award.
that Salisbury. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Councillor Blinas.
I'll move that Salisbury Town Council award the contract for the renovations to Town Hall to 506 Construction Limited at a cost of $420,000 excluding HST, and direct administration to continue ongoing cost-saving measure discussions.
So moved by Councillor Blinas. I'm assuming Councillor Colwell will be seconding that.
Yes.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Colwell. Questions to the motion?
The design looks great.
I
thought you did a
see,
great job,
Coun-
Austin.
That is not me. That is the architect. I did not do that. I did not.
He's not a
Well,
hydrologist either.
it's a good job.
So-
Councillor Dykstra.
I am happy with the design. I'm happy with all of it. I'm not happy with the single source that is not competitive. I don't understand why the other proponents did not submit a bid. I don't know if there's more to it than that, but just the one bid I'm not a fan of at all, and I don't support it.
Yeah, we gave the same caveat when we got the direction to go to local bidders, because this is often what we get, unfortunately. So we had the same thing with the washroom. And then with the washroom, we tendered and got 0 bids and had to redo it, and then got 2 in the nick of time. It's definitely a challenge because there often is a lot more work than there is people to do it. And generally we hear when there are more complicated projects that even from like a stamped engineering perspective drawings in the package, it's easier for some to go elsewhere because there's no shortage of work and projects. So re-tendering is definitely an option, but it will need to go on MBON, and it won't necessarily be by invites. And we won't be able to guarantee that it will be a local bidder that will do the work, and we will have to change the scope, which we can do, but we would have to do that to re-tender. So we would just revise the drawings accordingly. If that answers. I don't know if it was a question or a statement, but I responded to the statement in case it was a question.
I don't have any more to add. I'm just not a fan of it, to be perfectly honest.
So can I ask a question then? Like, are we done doing these by invite and they go on MBON? Like, if this is a recurring issue, how invested are we in caring that it's a local bidder?
That's a question for council. I think it's not to say that going on MBON means no local bidders. It's just that the likelihood is it gets a little bit more complicated, right? Because it's open to anybody, and anybody can bid on it. So it's just the intentional effort to make sure that it's a local bidder gets more complicated. We have, if we use the fire hall as an example, a project of that scale, there's a lot of local bidders or local companies that are working with the primary general contractor, and the general contractor staff live in Salisbury. Like, that's just a fluke, I would say. It doesn't happen often, but it is possible. So I would say there's certain things that we have to issue on MBON regardless if we want to or not, and then there's ones that we have the option on. It's a council decision as to whether or not we do that. We did have the same issue with the washroom though, so we're 2 for 2.
So I know this is like a bigger discussion for future probably, but like, I think I'm open now to just putting everything on MBON because local bidders have the same opportunity, but then maybe we wouldn't run into this sole source problem in the future. That's just a personal opinion.
I second that as well, more so from the point that at least letting them know that it's been posted so that they can check it out on MBON. But I do not like single bids that I don't trust it. I don't trust that the numbers are going to come back at the end of the day. Your contingencies are going to get blown through. I don't like any of it. Not to say the drawings are great. I think the plans and all that makes sense to me in general. I'm not a fan of the single source. I don't trust it.
So just to clarify though, in this case, it's not technically a single source. We sent it out to 4 bidders, right? That's the thing that we have to keep in mind. We're not going to a sole bidder. We went to 4. 3 attended a site visit. We are recommending an award on 1 bid. That is different. So it was
I appreciate the different terminology.
Yes.
Yes.
But yes, I think that's an easy piece from a future process perspective of what we can do if we reach that kind of threshold we post an MBON. I think there's generally I would say a misconception or a fear that as soon as you post on MBON, you only get the larger firms that will have larger prices, but local bidders are on MBON too, as we have seen. So the washroom ended up going on MBON with 2 local bidders. So it's a possibility, right? There is an option for them to register.
And I also think splitting out your HVAC from this particular job makes the most sense if it's such a big cost to begin with anyways.
We are exploring that as one of the cost saving measures, as long as it doesn't interfere with the administration of the contract of the work. But we are looking at it, in particular with some of the like the mini split additions. We're looking at that in particular.
Any additional comments or questions? To vote, all in favor, raise your hands. Did you get that recorded, Diane? I've got Councillor Oblinus, Councillor Thorne, Councillor Colwell, and Mayor Campbell as yeas, and Deputy Mayor Gallant, I believe I said him as well.
Yep.
And nay, will be Councillor Dykstra. Motion carried. Moving on to item number 3, year-end budget transfers.
So as always, our favorite time of the year when we have a gazillion motions for council to go through. So we sent the memo last evening and have, I think it's 10 or 11 in total. These are standard transfers at the end of the year that have to be done before the calendar year, hence why we are so kind to welcome you at 8 a.m. In between Christmas and New Year's. So there are a number of recommendations on the floor that I'll let council run through, but as an overview, we are recommending transfers in both the general and utility funds. As a quick overview, our general fund, our operating fund, is in a good position, primarily because we've budgeted for the full fire hall debenture in 2024, with part of it going towards the municipal building that we just awarded, and with another portion going towards the short-term financing costs for the building, which did not start until later in the year. We were prepared to have it start very early in case all of a sudden it closed and then started. That's the primary reason, other than a number of grants that have funded things that were in the operating budget that were not guaranteed grants going into this fiscal year. In the utility side, we are in a more favorable position than we have been historically because of an increased user rate. We're not recommending pulling from reserves for our polishing pond, and are recommending keeping and then increasing a little bit our transfer to our utility reserves. And we have, the main thing there is that there is an estimate on a bad debt calculation based on what we've seen historically and what our auditors want to look at now. It's often the same accounts, but the number has to reflect a percentage because we've increased our user rate this year. And the other main thing is that, as council knows, going into 2025, so next fiscal year, we are reducing our transfer from the utility fund to the operating fund from 200,000 to 150, where our utility funds can absorb that, or our operating funds, where you can absorb that this year. We're recommending doing the same thing this year, which is a reflection of more accurate numbers in terms of what the operating budget, the operating world spends on the utility world. So with that, that's my caveat. We've gone through these preliminary numbers last week. Yeah, last week, they all blur. Early last week with the auditors as kind of what we'll call an interim audit, I guess. And there are no concerns that have been raised. So with that, I'll pass over to council for the several recommendations and we can run through them.
All right, who would like to start on the first of 11?
I can. Am I reading the whole recommendation, like the preamble and everything, Austin? Yes, right?
Please, if you can. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll move that while the town of Salisbury budgeted a $200,000 transfer from the 2024 wastewater utility operating fund to the 2024 general operating fund, council authorize administration to reduce the transfer to $150,000 for 2024 as is budgeted in 2025, giving council's intent to begin lowering this transfer to recognize the actual time invested from the general operating budget in staff time and resources for the utility. So moved.
Seconded.
It's moved by Councillor Thorne, seconded by Councillor Oblinus. Questions to the motion? Seeing no questions to the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I see consensus or across the board, Clerk Diane, with all yeses. Contrary minded, please record no contrary minded. Motion carried. Moving on to item number 2.
I'll do the next one. I'll move that whereas section 117(7)B of the Local Governance Act permits the local government to establish, manage, and contribute to a capital reserve fund for a wastewater utility, be it therefore resolved that the sum of $50,000 be transferred from the town's 2024 wastewater utility operating fund to the wastewater utility capital reserve fund for future capital projects.
So moved by Councillor Blinas, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gallant. Questions to the motion? Seeing no questions to the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 And Clerk Diane, that would be all councillors and mayor voted yes on that. Contrary minded would be no. Motion carried. Moving on to item number 3.
I'll do that one. Whereas section 101B of the Local Governance Act permits the local government to establish, manage, and contribute to a capital reserve fund, be it therefore resolved that the sum of $115,000 be transferred from the town's general capital reserve fund earned as the 2022 and 2023 participation prizes and subsequent transferred to the reserves to the 2024 general operating fund to fund a portion of the town's trail capital project in 2024.
Moved by Councillor Dykstra, seconded by
Seconded.
Councillor Colwell. Questions to the motion? Seeing no questions to the motion, all in favor? Aye.
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 And Clerk
Aye.
Diane, I see we have all yays or ayes, no contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to the next item.
I'll do this one. So I'll move whereas section 101A of the Local Governance Act permits the local government to establish, manage, and contribute to a operating reserve fund. Be it therefore resolved that the sum of $20,000 be transferred from the general operating reserve fund received from the government of New Brunswick in 2023 and subsequently transferred to reserves to be applied towards the Salisbury 250 programming initiative held in 2024 to the 2024 general operating fund.
So moved by Councillor Colwell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gallant. Questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor? Aye.
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 And Clerk Diane, I see we have all ayes on that, so no contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to item number 5.
I'll move that council transfer $3,000 from the 2024 general operating fund to the town's financial assistance for recreation fire program.
Moved by
Seconded.
Councillor Blinas, seconded by, I believe that was Councillor Dykstra.
Yep.
Okay, and any questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Clerk Diane, please record those were all ayes, no nays. Motion carried. Moving on to item number 6.
I'll do this one. Whereas section 101B of the Local Governance Act permits the local government to establish, manage, and contribute to a capital reserve fund, be it therefore resolved that the sum of $9,000 be transferred to the town's general capital reserve fund as budgeted for future capital projects. So
Moved by Councillor Colwell, or sorry, Councillor Thorne, sorry. And moved, seconded by
I'll
Councillor
second.
Colwell. Okay, questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor? Aye.
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 Diane, please note all ayes, no nays, motion carried. Moving on to the next motion.
I'll do that one. Whereas section 101B of the Local Governance Act permits the local government to establish, manage, and contribute to capital reserve fund, be it therefore resolved the sum of $125,000 be transferred from the 2024 general operating fund to the town of Salisbury's general capital reserve fund and be allocated for the continuation of trail work not completed by year end in 2024.
So moved by
Second.
Councillor Dykstra, seconded by Councillor Thorne. Questions to the motion? Seeing no
Is that
questions to the motion.
trail work
Oh,
planning on
wait.
being done for right away in the new year, or are they waiting to spring at this point?
That trail work, so the boardwalk will be finished. It is almost done. They're still plugging away. But this portion here is going to be in the spring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No additional questions? Seeing no additional questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Clerk Diane, that would be all ayes, no nays. Motion carried. Moving on to the next item.
I can do this one. Uh, which one are we on? $75,000?
On- Yeah,
Yes.
that's the one.
I move that whereas Section 101B of the Local Governance Act permits the local government to establish, manage, and contribute to a capital reserve fund, be it therefore resolved that the sum of $75,000 be transferred from the 2024 General Operating Fund to the Town of Salisbury's General Capital Reserve Fund for future capital projects. So moved.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gallant, seconded by Councillor Oblinus. Questions to the motion? Seeing no questions to the motion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I see all ayes, Clerk Diane, and no nays. Motion carried. Moving on to the next item, a transfer of $380,000.
I can do this one. I'll move that whereas Section 101B of the Local Governance Act permits the local government to establish, manage, and contribute to a capital reserve fund, be it therefore resolved that the sum of $380,000 be transferred from the 2024 General Operating Fund to the Town of Salisbury's General Capital Reserve Fund and be allocated to the capital project at the municipal building.
So moved by Councillor Oblinus, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gallant. Questions to the motion? Seeing no questions to the motion, all in favor? Aye.
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 That would be all ayes, Clerk Diane. No nays, motion carried. Moving on to the next transfer of $15,000. Who would like to make that motion?
I'll do it. I'll move whereas Section 101B of the Local Governance Act permits the local government to establish, manage, and contribute to a capital reserve fund. Be it therefore resolved that the sum of $15,000 be transferred from the 2024 General Operating Fund, being the prize won in 2024 for the provincial title in the 2024 Participation Challenge, to the Town of Salisbury's General Capital Reserve Fund for a future recreational capital project.
So moved by Councillor Colwell, seconded by Councillor Thorne. Questions to the motion? Seeing no questions to the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Clerk Diane, please note all ayes on that, no nays, motion carried. And moving on to the last item for $25,000.
I'll move that whereas Section 101A of the Local Governance Act permits the local government to establish, manage, and contribute to an operating reserve fund, be it therefore resolved that the sum of $25,000 be transferred from the 2024 General Operating Fund to the Town of Salisbury's General Operating Reserve Fund, and if required, be allocated towards feasibility work on the Sunrise Twilight Municipal Land Development Project, or otherwise be unallocated for future operating requirements.
So moved by Councillor Dykstra,
Second.
seconded by Councillor Colwell. Questions to the motion? See no questions to the motion. All in favor? Aye.
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 And Clerk Diane, I see all ayes, no nays, motion carried. Okay, moving on to item number 5, bylaws. I don't believe we have anything there. Item number 6, closed session. Nothing there. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved by Councillor Thorne, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gallant. Any questions to the motion? No questions, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Please note, Deputy or Clerk Diane, that everybody would like to adjourn. So meeting adjourned.